I will never erase that evening from my memory. Not because it was full of joy, not because it turned my fate for the better, but because in that moment, everything I believed in as reality dissipated like mist. My wife was sitting across from me. We were having dinner in the apartment, an ordinary dinner with no signs of trouble. She touched her belly with her hand, smiled, and said, "I have news, I'm expecting a child." I was supposed to jump for joy. I should have rushed to her, hugged her tightly, felt like the luckiest man in the world. I dreamed of this. We both dreamed of it. But her gaze, it trembled, not from jubilation, from horror. I froze, and in the silence, I heard my heart pounding too loudly. "This," I swallowed a lump, "this is wonderful, dear, but why do you look like you're ashamed?" She looked away, fell silent, and then she uttered the words that burned everything alive inside me. "This isn't your baby." I didn't realize it right away. My mind was buzzing as if someone had suddenly turned the volume up to full. I asked again. I laughed as if it were a prank, absurd, merciless. She lifted her gaze and whispered, "This is your father's child." And that's when I smirked. Not from bliss, not from rage, just smirked. As if my nervous system decided, if you explode now you'll die, so smirk. You might think it was a fit of anger, that I flipped the table, yelled at her, threw her out. No, I smirked. And then I said, "Okay, tell me everything." And she told me. To understand the full depth of the betrayal, I need to go back to the beginning. How we met, why I trusted these people at all, her and him. Why I ended up in a position where a smirk became my only armor. My name is Marco. I'm 27. I grew up in a family where my father was always at the center of the universe, charming, decisive with capital. The kind of person who can walk into a room and instantly everyone revolves around him. And I was his opposite, balanced, quiet, not seeking everyone's attention. If my father was fire, I was shadow. And in that shadow I grew up accustomed to him always surpassing, succeeding, dominating. Mom left us when I was a teenager. I never fully understood the reasons. My father never elaborated and I didn't pry. She was just gone one day. From then on, he was both my educator and my idol. Though truthfully an idol in the sense that I never wanted to live like him. When I met her, Sophia, everything changed. It happened at university. I was working part-time in a used bookstore in Milan. She came in for a textbook and we started talking. She laughed at my jokes, though I always considered myself not very funny. She looked at me as if I were truly an interesting guy. A couple of weeks later, we were a couple. A couple of months later, I realized she was the one. Sophia was smart, kind, with sparkling eyes that lit up during every conversation. She loved painting, and I often caught her with a brush in her fingers, carefully applying strokes to the canvas. My friends said, "You're lucky, girls like Sophia don't come along every day." I thought so too. When I first introduced her to my father, I didn't anticipate anything extraordinary. But, as it turned out, that's when the intrigue began that led me to that smirk. They hit it off right away. He shared stories from his youth, she burst into laughter. He showered praise on her paintings, she blushed. And I remember feeling a slight unease in that moment, but I quickly brushed it off. "Come on, Marco," I told myself. "It's great when your father and your girlfriend get along." Yes, back then I didn't know just how well they got along. Our relationship evolved. We graduated from university, rented an apartment in Rome. Sophia always encouraged me. When I couldn't find a job in my field, she would say, "You'll make it. I believe in you." And all this time, my father was around. He helped with the rent, lent money when times were tight. Sometimes it felt like I was still living under his wing. And Sophia, she always found common ground with him. "Your father is an amazing person," she said once. "Not everyone can achieve so much." I nodded, but inside it stung. Again that shadow, again the comparison where I lose. Time flew, I proposed, and Sophia said yes. The wedding was modest, warm. My father, of course, covered almost all the expenses. "You're my son, Marco. I want everything to be perfect for you," he said. Back then, I was grateful. Back then, I didn't see a hint of malice in it. And you know what's the strangest thing? All this time, I never once suspected that Sophia could look at him differently. I was convinced she loves me. But after the wedding, strange things started. She began staying out longer with friends. Sometimes she wouldn't answer calls for hours, and when I asked, she always smiled and said, "Marco, you're worrying too much, trust me." And I trusted. Foolishly, blindly, but I trusted. Until one day I came home earlier than usual. I was walking down the street and accidentally saw a familiar car near our building. My father's car. My heart sank. I slowed down, looked closer, and yes, he was coming out of the entrance. I wanted to call out, wanted to run up, but my legs were glued to the sidewalk. I stood there like an idiot while he got in the car and drove away. And then I convinced myself, maybe he just stopped by, visited us, maybe Sophia asked for help. Yes, I convinced myself, because the truth was too horrific. And now here I am sitting across from her. She just confessed that she's expecting a child from my father. And I smirk. You know what's the scariest thing? In that moment I realized, this smirk is the only thing saving me from the abyss. After that dinner, when Sophia revealed to me that she's expecting a child from my father, I started noticing details that previously seemed trivial to me. Every tiny feature, every glance, every suspicious gesture, now pieced together into a terrifying mosaic. I tried to live as if nothing had happened. Got up, went to work, pretended nothing was wrong, but inside it was burning. Every morning started with the thought, what else don't I know? The first doubts arose long before Sophia's confession. She started staying at work more often than usual. Of course, I wasn't blind. Sometimes she really was at meetings, sometimes chatting with friends, but something in her manner was unusual. She would sometimes giggle into the phone, but when I approached, the giggling stopped. "Marco, it's just business," she said once, catching me watching her. "Yes, of course, business," I replied, but something inside me tightened. And then those mysterious coincidences. I noticed how she casually, in passing, mentioned my father. "Your dad told a funny anecdote from his youth," and she smiled as if hiding something inside that I wasn't supposed to see. Or, "Marco, he's just as much a wine connoisseur as I am," she said when we were picking a bottle for dinner together. Before, it seemed touching to me. Now it created a feeling that she was living in some other dimension where I was an outsider. I tried to explain it to myself rationally. Maybe I'm too suspicious, I thought. Maybe it's just coincidences. But when I came home an hour early one day, reality slapped me in the face. I heard a voice, a male voice. I didn't recognize whose at first. I sneaked to the door, listened. And there was my father, in our apartment. He was laughing. Sophia was laughing along with him. I froze, ice in my chest. My heart seemed to stop for a moment. I didn't intervene. I just stood in the hallway, watching this scene as if it weren't happening to me. After that, I started noticing small things I had ignored before. My father's lighter, forgotten on the kitchen table. A tie that definitely wasn't mine. An expensive scent that Sophia never had. Every item, every little thing, like a quiet whisper. You didn't notice, but it's already done. I tried to convince myself, no, it's a coincidence. She loves me. She would never do that. But my mind knew the truth. In the evenings, I started watching closely. How Sophia smiles when my father calls. How she quietly sighs after his visits. How she picks an outfit for dinner, knowing my father will be there. And every time I asked myself one question, what does she do when I'm not around? My father, it seems, noticed nothing, or pretended not to. He visited us often. At first, it was routine visits, tea, talks about everyday things. Then he started staying longer, stayed for dinner longer than usual. I looked at both of them and felt a strange chill. "Marco, you look exhausted," he said once. "Everything okay?" I nodded. The words "everything's fine" barely pushed through the lump in my throat. And then came the day when I first seriously thought something was wrong. I came home after work, tired and annoyed. The apartment was silent. Sophia was cooking something in the kitchen. "Hi," I said. "How was your day?" She smiled, but something flashed in her eyes that I hadn't noticed before, a slight anxiety, worry. I approached. Her bag was on the table. I accidentally brushed it with my hand. Something fell out. A small note. The handwriting was familiar, my father's. I picked it up, read the lines. "Don't worry, everything is going according to plan." My heart stopped. In the following days, I started acting cautiously. I watched, listened, carefully analyzed their interactions. Every gesture from Sophia, like a puzzle piece. Every word from my father, like a clue I had missed before. I tried not to show suspicion. I talked to Sophia as usual, smiled, pretended everything was fine, but inside it was burning. I started a notebook, recorded all the little things, every call, every visit, every remark. "Marco, what are you writing there?" Sophia asked. "Just thoughts," I replied, "for myself." She nodded, didn't pry further, not too much. One day, I couldn't hold back and decided to check her phone. I know it's wrong, I know it's a breach of trust, but what else was left? I wanted to be sure of myself. The phone was locked. I knew her code, we trusted each other. I opened it. Messages with my father. Not ordinary friendly messages, not discussions of business. The tone was too intimate, light humor that I recognized only from their jokes. Words I had heard before, but now they sounded different. "Marco, I can't wait for our date tonight," I read one message. The world around me collapsed. I sat on the couch clutching the phone. My heart was pounding, but my mind tried to find an excuse. Maybe it's a joke, maybe I misunderstood everything. But no, I couldn't ignore it. And then, a few weeks later, Sophia sat across from me and said the words that changed my fate forever. "Marco, I'm expecting a child from your father." I smirked, and in that moment, I realized that no more evidence was needed. I saw it in all those details, in every glance, every smile, every treacherous message. Now every day became a test for me. Every evening, a chess game where I watched both of them and they didn't suspect I knew. And you know what's the strangest thing? That smirk, which was my defense in that moment, became my shield. Until I decide what to do next, I can only watch. But one day I'll decide. And then everything will change. I woke up that morning with the feeling that the universe had turned upside down. Every cell in my being knew nothing would ever be the same. Sophia was sleeping next to me. I looked at her face, trying to find the old smile, the old Sophia I fell in love with. But her breathing was even, peaceful, and her thoughts. Who knows what she was thinking about? I got up, looked at myself in the mirror, a feeling of emptiness, a lump in my chest that wouldn't let me breathe. And I decided, today I'll meet with my father, today I'll learn the truth. I called him. At first I tried to speak calmly, evenly. "Hi, Dad, can we talk?" "Of course, son, everything okay?" His tone was casual, without a hint of suspicion. "Everything's fine, I just want to see you in person." I felt my voice tremble. He agreed. An hour later, I was at his house in Naples. When I stepped inside, everything was as before. Elegant furniture, the aroma of expensive coffee, paintings on the walls. But now I saw it differently. Everything seemed like a set behind which the truth was hidden. He smiled, as always. "Marco, glad to see you. Sit down, let's pour some coffee." I sat down, looked at him. My heart was pounding, and my mind was trying to find the words to start the conversation. "Dad," I began, "we need to talk about Sophia." He raised an eyebrow, his smile faded. "About Sophia," he said slowly, warily. "What happened?" I took a deep breath. Everything I had been holding in for the past weeks, all the doubts, all the evidence, all the betrayals, it all merged into one. "She's expecting a child, from you." Silence. At first, he didn't react. I saw his gaze change. He was trying to read me, assess my reaction. "You're joking, Marco," he finally said. "No, I saw the messages, I faltered, not knowing how to express it exactly. "Everything I know." He fell silent. Then he smiled. But it wasn't his usual smile. It was the smile of a man who knows he's been caught but isn't ready to show his cards yet. "I didn't expect you to find out so soon," he said finally. "Sophia, she told you." I nodded. "Yes, she told me." That's when the strangest thing happened. He didn't explode. He didn't apologize. He didn't try to convince me it was a misunderstanding. He calmly looked at me and said, "Marco, you need to understand, this wasn't accidental." I jumped up. "Not accidental, are you serious?" My voice broke. "You destroyed everything, everything." He nodded. "Yes, and yes, I know you're furious, but there are things you don't understand yet. I froze. What else do I need to understand? I asked quietly, trying to hold back a scream. He took a deep breath. Sophia, she's always been special, strong. She wanted to be with me herself, but I got tangled up too. Tangled up, I repeated. She's my wife, you're my father. I know, he said quietly, and I never wanted this, but sometimes fate puts us in situations that can't be changed. I looked at him, my heart clenched. Everything inside me screamed, how can you say that? After that meeting, I returned to the apartment. Sophia was sitting on the couch, looking out the window. I sat next to her. Why did you do this? I asked. Why did you hide it? She lowered her gaze. Tears welled up in her eyes. Marco, she said quietly, I didn't want to, it just happened. Just happened, I almost yelled. You destroyed everything. I love you, she cried, but I couldn't control my feelings. I fell silent, words lost their meaning. And now you're expecting a child from my father. I looked straight at her, trying to comprehend how this was possible. Yes, she said, I didn't want you to find out like this. The following days were hell. I tried to work, meet friends, distract myself, but thoughts of the two of them haunted me. Every call from them, every message, like a dagger in the back. I noticed that my father started visiting more often. He said he wanted to support Sophia and the baby. But in reality, he was watching. He was observing me as if checking my reaction. I tried to talk to Sophia, ask how she envisions our future. But she evaded the answer. Marco, I love you, but the baby. She fell silent. You need to understand. And I understood one thing. I no longer know who I love and who I fear. One evening, I decided to act. I gathered all the evidence, messages, notes, their mysterious meetings, decided it was time to lay it all out. Sophia, we need to talk. I placed the phone with the read messages in front of her. Is this the truth? She looked, tears streamed down her cheeks. Yes, Marco, she said, it's the truth. I took a deep breath. And what now? I asked. I want us to try, she began. Try, I interrupted. Try what? Everything's shattered. And that's when I first felt I might lose control. That I might do something I'd regret later. But instead of yelling, hitting, blaming, I smirked again. Not because I was comfortable. Not because I forgave. Just because otherwise I would have given up. That smirk became my shield. My protection. My way to survive. After that dinner, I couldn't sleep. Every minute stretched like eternity, every thought like a blow. I sat on the couch, clutching the phone with the messages that destroyed my fate. My eyes burned, but my mind coldly analyzed what to do next. The first decision came suddenly. I need to act. I couldn't just watch them manipulate my life. Sophia and my father had to realize that the rules of the game had changed. I started with Sophia. We need to discuss how to live on, I said in the morning when she tried to leave for work. Marco, she began, but I interrupted. Today, here. She sighed and sat across from me. I looked her straight in the eyes. There was horror and guilt in her eyes, but now it didn't matter. Sophia, I began, you're expecting a child from my father, is that right? She nodded, tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't know how to tell you, she said quietly. I tried. Tried what? I interrupted. To hide it, to play happy family while ruining my life. She didn't respond. I don't know how we can overcome this, I continued. But one thing I know for sure, I'm not going to be a pawn in your game. Next step, my father. I called him and said I wanted to meet. This time without smirks, without diplomacy. When I stepped into his house, he tried to greet me with his usual casual smile. But I didn't give him a chance. That's it, the game is over, I said straight. Marco, he began, but I interrupted. I've seen everything. Messages, dates, your jokes, I know the truth. He fell silent. I saw his face change. He realized I was serious. And what now? He asked quietly. I sighed. Now I set the terms. I paused to make sure he was listening. Sophia stays safe. I want to be near the child, and no one will try to manipulate me. He nodded. Okay, he said, I understand. After those conversations, a new game began. I watched Sophia and her well-being, monitored how she communicated with my father. Now everything was different. I saw every move, every smile, every hidden intention. But I was no longer passive. I started planning how to protect Sophia, how to understand what the child wants for the future, and most importantly, how to maintain control over my fate. Every action of mine was now calculated. And then one evening, a moment happened when everything went to a new level. Sophia came home late. She looked worried. "Marco," she began, but I was waiting. "Speak," I said. She fell silent, then sighed. "Dad offered support," she said. "He wants to help us prepare for the baby." I nodded. "Okay, but on one condition. I decide what and how will happen." She looked at me in surprise. "You're serious?" she asked. "Absolutely," I said. "I'm no longer a pawn." The following weeks were a real test. My father visited, tried to establish connections with Sophia and me. He tried to joke, shower compliments, suddenly show care. But I saw through his smile. Sophia tried to balance. Love for me and for my father intertwined in her, creating tension. I realized that any wrong move, and it would all explode. I decided to act differently. I started keeping a notebook where I recorded everything. Conversations, movements, messages, dates. Every word, every action was noted. I did this not out of revenge, but to understand what was happening and to have control. And gradually, I felt a strength I hadn't known before. I stopped being a victim. I started observing, analyzing, making decisions. One evening, Sophia approached me. "Marco," she said quietly, "you've changed." "Yes," I said. "I'm no longer playing by someone else's rules." She smiled through tears. "I want to be with you," she said, "but we need to understand how to be together after all this." "We'll make it," I said, "together." And for the first time in weeks, I felt I could breathe. Although difficulties lay ahead, although our fates would never be the same, I knew one thing. Now I hold the control. The world around didn't collapse, it just transformed. And in those transformations, I began to see a new perspective. With the first rays of the sun, I woke up with a heavy feeling. The past weighed on my shoulders, but now I was ready. I knew today I need to sort everything out. I met Sophia in the kitchen. "Marco," she began, but I stopped her with a look. "Today we resolve everything. No hidden intrigues, no excuses, only the truth." She nodded. "Okay." I took the notebook where I recorded every message, every word from my father and Sophia. "Look here," I said, showing the pages. "I know about everything." Her eyes filled with tears. "Marco, I'm scared." "I'm scared too," I said. "But we need to be honest, otherwise nothing will work." Next, conversation with my father. I called him, said I wanted to meet one-on-one. This time, I wasn't going to listen to excuses. When I stepped inside, he tried to greet me with a smile. "Marcos," he began. "No," I interrupted. "Listen carefully. Everything that was between you and Sophia is over. I'm not going to let anyone manipulate me and my family." He looked at me in surprise, but remained silent. "I'm giving you a chance to be honest and help the child, but only as a relative," I continued. "Everything else is forbidden." He nodded. "Okay, son, I understand." After that meeting, I felt a strange relief. Finally, the world stopped revolving around hidden secrets and intrigues. Now everything was out in the open, and everyone knew their boundaries. Sophia was by my side. We talked for a long time, about the future, about the child, about how we'll live together. We agreed that relations with my father would be strictly regulated. He would support the child, but not interfere in our personal affairs. A few weeks passed. I saw how Sophia was changing. She became calmer, happier. She no longer hid emotions, no longer played secret intrigues. And I realized that our love had strengthened through the trials. My father also started behaving differently. He helped with preparations for the child, but stayed on his side without attempts to manipulate. I no longer felt a threat. Finally, the day came when Sophia and I decided to formalize everything officially. We signed documents for joint housing, discussed financial aspects, prepared for the child's birth. I felt proud of myself for being able to keep the situation under control. "Marco," Sophia said one evening, "I know everything was a nightmare, but I'm grateful that you were able to be strong." I smirked. We did it together. And in that moment I realized our life will never be the same. But now we set the rules ourselves. The last conversation with my father was brief. "Thanks for the support," I said, "but no more concealments." He nodded. "Yes, son, I understand." And for the first time, I felt I could breathe freely. The world around me transformed, but I knew one thing. Now I'm the master of my fate. The last weeks before the child's birth flew by quickly. We chose a name together, set up the nursery, discussed future celebrations. Every action of Sophia's and mine, a step toward a new life. And then the day came. We held the tiny life in our arms. Tears of bliss, mixed with memories of the past, made that moment unforgettable. "We made it," I said quietly. Sophia smiled, holding the child close. "Yes, Marco, we made it." And in that moment I realized the past remains in the past. Now I choose who I am and how to live on. The world isn't destroyed, it just transformed. And in those transformations, I found strength, love, and control.